All right, good morning. Today is Monday, the 6th of February, day number 18 of the class. And I know you got this in an email already, but I want to let you know what's going on all week. All right. Today, as it says, I'm going to literally copy my chapter 6 Halloween project to chapter 7 and then go ahead and do that one. And when we get done, I'm going to copy my chapter 7 shape up project to chapter 8. And I'm going to go over both of those exercises because people were having problems with both the nav bar and with, I guess, with the responsive web design. All right. So tomorrow, or after we get done with that, because I don't think that'll take that long, or hopefully it won't, maybe to the first break, we'll see. Then I'm going to go in and start to create, and I'll do it very incrementally, the chapters 1 through 9 pretest. All right. And tomorrow I'll finish that up, and I'm working on one more Flexbox example that I'd like to do. Wednesday, we will have on 3 for chapters 1 to 9. It'll be almost strictly, exclusively on Flexbox. On Thursday, I will lecture on chapter 10 from the Muroc text. Friday will be a lab day. All right. I have changed the due date for the chapters 7 and 8 tests, labs, and homework to Tuesday at midnight. And your chapter 9 stuff will still be due this Sunday. It's only one chapter. So hopefully, we're having that Friday as a lab day. You'll have a chance to complete all of it. All right. Okay, then let's get started. So again, this is what we did in 6. We're going to go on from here, but this was adding the 2-column layout. All right. And that's all I wanted to say about that. In chapter 7, we're going to add the navigation menus. And again, I got emails over the weekend from some people saying, hey, I tried doing it this way. I tried doing it this way. Nothing seemed to work, or it looks funky, or whatever. So I'm going to go through with you what I did, and hopefully that will help. Again, the idea here is I will go over the Halloween chapter 7 with you, and then you will be able to look at the chapter 7, all right, for shape up. All right. Then I will go over the chapter 8 shape up with you, and you will be able then to go back and go over this, okay, the Halloween chapter 8 by yourselves. And I'm hoping doing it this way because I'm doing part of the homework with you, for you, however you want to look at it. All right. But I'm hoping that that's going to, for lack of better words, force you into doing one of them each time. All right. And at least you'll have some of the work done already. So as it says here, in this exercise, you'll enhance the home page. You worked on an exercise 6 so that it includes this vertical navigation menu. It's a 2-tier menu, meaning that we've got the first tier and the second tier. Just so you know, there literally is, to my knowledge at least, there is no limit to how many levels you can go. I don't know if I've ever seen one much more than 3 levels, maybe 4. But afterwards, you're so far down on the page, and it gets so confusing once you do that to see exactly what's going on. All right, and it says we'll also talk about an image link. It says when you're through, this is the way the page should look. So again, what's been added from the last one? Okay, we had the props, costumes, etc. over here. All right, now we're making them look like buttons, but we're adding the menu. All right, I think other than that, okay, I think it's pretty much the same. So we don't have a whole heck of a lot of specs here as you take a look. Add a 2-tier navigation menu that includes the link shown above. Format the navigation menu so the link that's currently displayed, in this case, home, has orange text. And oftentimes you'll see that, all right? That, sometimes, for instance, this class will be called active. And when you've got an active class, that one will be in red, okay? All right, let's see. Format the links in the sidebar as a vertical navigation menu as shown above. Make sure that each box, the box for each link is clickable. So when you look at this, and I don't even remember, we're going to be doing it together in just a minute, but I think over here at least, these are just hyperlinks. And you can play with a hyperlink and make it look like a button. All right. So finally, modify the image in the main contents so that its link displays the same page as the link below it. All right, now they must mean the one here. All right, so I'm going to I'll tell you what I'll do is I'm going to make this a little smaller, about like that. So now we've got all of our requirements here and the way that it's supposed to look. So I'm just going to take it from the top here. All right, so I made this folder where, let's see, where do I have it? Yeah. So there's my Halloween, and here's my chapter 6. So all I'm going to do is copy this, and I'm going to make this chapter 7. And while I'm at it, just so I don't have to do that later, let's just come in here, and I'm going to copy my chapter 7, and I'm going to make that one chapter 8. All right. So right now, in other words, these two things are identical. So let's look at what we have now. Okay, we've got this. Okay, and as you can see, there's no menu here. All right, and when you hover over this, nothing happens. So it's time to start changing that. So let's do that. All right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up, let's just bring them both up. So here is the HTML, and then let's bring up the main as well. Now, hopefully you all got this, but I sent everybody out an email last week letting you know that the stuff had been graded. All right, and as we take a look at this, and hopefully I'm preaching to the choir for lack of better words here, and this all makes sense, that if you're going to do this, a couple people on one or more of their assignments, they reverse these. You don't ever want to do that. You always want the normalize first. Sorry. You always want the normalize first. All right. And then after or under that, you want the one that you've created, and always do it like that. All right. Otherwise, you might be overwriting some of your own changes. All right. So let's see. We've got taking it from the top. Let's see. We've got our doc type, this, that looks good. Head, body. I'm just looking for what has to change here. Well, the first thing we're going to do is under the header. All right, before we get to main, and there's, believe it or not, there's debate over this. Some people believe that when you create a nav section, it should always go in the header. Other people believe that it should be outside of the header. All right, it's not really that important one way or the other, but I'm going to put it outside. So I'm going to create a nav section right here. In fact, let me do one thing. I'm sorry. So let me not even save this. All right, so let's see. I'm going to bring this up, but I should be more consistent here than I am. So I'm going to bring this up, and I'm going to bring it up inside of code. All right. I mean, if I'm asking you to use Visual Studio Code, I should be doing the same thing. All right. So here's our main styles, what we'll look at in a minute, and there's our index file. All right. So taking it from the top, like I said, I don't particularly like these blank spaces. If you want to put them in, you can. They don't hurt anything. It's up to you. But I'm going to put a nav section in here. So this is going to be my navigation area. All right. We'll want to do some styling on this. So I'm going to give it an ID. By now, it should make sense to every single one of you watching this live or on tape, what the difference is between a class and an ID. We're only expecting to have one navigation menu on this page. If we were going to have more and we wanted them to look different, all right, we would give them each their own ID. If we wanted them to look the same, we could use a class instead. All right, so when you do this, it's going to be in an unordered list. This is going to look real funky when we first start doing it, just because of the fact we will not yet have any styling on it. So if it does look funky, don't worry about it. All right. Again, we've got that class equal current, and that's going to allow us to do the coloring that I mentioned. All right, and we'll call this home. So that is our first one. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this 3 times and make changes. All right. Now you can only have one class of current at a time. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove all these class equal currents on all of them except not on the first one. All right. So we're going to have a home. Then we're going to have an index under products. Then we're going to have an index under personal. And finally, we're going to have an index under decorations. All right. So again, this will say product list. This will say personal. This will say decorating ideas. Now, I've already mentioned this to you, but if I go out and save this, so if I do a file save all, and I bring this up in live server, okay, I'm not going to say it looks like a mess, but it doesn't look good either. All right. Again, we want this to go up here. We're going to do that in a moment. And the other thing we want to do is under this one, we want there to be a submenu. All right. So I'm just building this, like I said, purposely, very incrementally, so you can see exactly what's going on here. All right. So what I want to do is under this LI that we have right here, I want to put in another unordered list. And as I mentioned, you can have as many of these as you want to. My internet connection sounds like it dropped for a second, and I'm hoping that doesn't continue. All right, so call them what they are. And finally, treats. Now, there's one more thing I want to do, and then I'm going to run this. That is, I'm going to bring this underneath here, copy, and underneath the inner unordered list, we are supposed to also have a thing here that says email.html, and it will say join email. All right, let me save this, and let me go back to here. Oops, I guess I didn't have it open still, so let's open it. So you can see exactly what we have right here. All right, that one doesn't look right, this treats, so I'll have to fix that. What's wrong with the treats? Oh, don't know what happened there. Okay, well, let's just do this. I don't know what happened there, so evidently when I copied it over, I screwed it up. So let's just go and fix that. So this one is treats, and so is this. Right? So file, save all. Let's take a quick look. And that's looking the way that it should look. All right. Now, my question is, before I go on, because we've pretty much got everything where you can see it on screen right now, and I can leave it up there for a moment if you need me to do that. But the question is, does everything in there make sense? Does anybody have any questions on anything that's in there?
I think that this part, mine looks the same so far. So I think I
Okay.
understand this part.
Okay, good. All right. And again, for the rest of you, because we only have one watching live right now, it is your responsibility. And when you have problems and you email me, all right, I'm going to try to help you. But the more specific you can be with your problem, the easier it is for me to try to help you. All right. Because for you to just email me and say, hey, I'm having problems with this, that doesn't really tell me very much. All right. It's like you probably wouldn't go into a mechanic, and when the mechanic says, what's wrong? Say, well, my car is acting funny. All right. Okay. So now we're going to come in here, and in the aside, we've already got this. Okay. So we've got our products, costumes, special masks, etc. And that's the end of the aside. Then we've got a section in there that's the welcome to our site. All right. We've got the image here, products here, the guarantee. I'm looking for something else that we have to add. If there is anything right now, I don't know what it is, but we'll go back and we'll take a look to make sure we don't miss anything. Okay. And we'll do that momentarily. So let's go back, and I'm going to just do a save. And now I'm going to go over to here into our CSS. All right. Now, some of you had problems creating or having the background image show. All right. And some people put the background image under HTML, and some people put the background image under body. Let's talk real quickly about the difference. Technically, HTML is the entire page. It's everything that's on the page that you can see. So in other words, right here, it would be everything that you see here in white if that was the page. On the other hand, body is everything that you've decided that you're going to put content into. So let's say that everything where we've got text here is the body. So you may want to, if you were having problems, you may want to do it like this. All right. And again, it's ... because we are in our CSS folder to get us back to our main folder, then images, then bats.gif. And again, hopefully, at least, hopefully all of that stuff makes sense. All right. I have to take for granted that after we've been doing this for a while, that, for example, like font family, things like that, they just make sense to you that, and if they don't, you're going to ask. All right. We set up a width of 800 pixels, a background color, margin 0 auto. Again, that should make sense to you. That means no padding top and bottom, and center it left and right. Padding 0 means we want no padding to begin with. We're putting a border around our entire body, okay, and we're putting a shadow around that. So basically, again, when we look at this, you can see with what we just talked about right there. All right. Okay. So next we've got our H1s, H2s, and H3s. Okay. Technically, it may have worked without even doing this, but a lot of times what you're going to end up doing at the beginning is just removing margin and padding, all right, and making sure that there is no browser default stuff that gets put in there, all right? Okay, so what do we have next? We got our header stuff. I don't think this changes here, the font weight, etc. We'll look at that in a bit. But the header stuff, that's our gradient has basically been put in there. Our image, we're floating to the left. We've got some padding to the right. And remember, with padding like this, you don't have to pad all the way around. All right, that's the same thing right there as if we had said padding 0, 15 pixels, 0, 0. That would have worked as well. All right. Then we've got our H2, and you'll notice that's more than 2 times its regular or normal or whatever you want to call that size. All right. And then we've got our H3. All right. And I'm looking on here, and I believe with the H3, we have a little bit of padding on the bottom here. All right. Now we've got our sections, etc. in here. We've got this aside in here for the sidebar, etc. We got our footer. Well, I'm going to come next because we just did our header. In fact, I like to do this. You don't have to, but I'm going to put here global specifications. You don't have to do this. All right, and that's that stuff. That's everything basically that we saw in here. Then we've got header, and under the header, before sidebar, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put in navbar because that's what we did next. All right, and there's quite a few things that we have to put in here for the navbar. All right, now remember, or hopefully you remember, that the navbar was put in as an ID. And it was called nav_menu, I believe. Let's double check. All right, so far we have come in and all this basically should be done as far as its styling. So we're in here now. And we're doing this, and it is nav_menu. All right. First thing we want to do is I'm going to do a clear left because we had floated left to begin with. All right. And then I'm going to work my way down. I want to say that again. I'm going to work my way down on this. Okay. All right. So, and what I mean is I'm going to start with the UL itself. All right. And I'm going to say list style none. All right. Because we don't want there to be anything in there. And the position, we want that to be relative. Okay. Basically, we don't want it to move as the program goes along. Now, we haven't done a lot in here yet, but let's just take a quick look. Let's jump back. And all you'll notice is that in here, our dots are now gone. Doesn't really look any different other than that. All right, it's a start though. All right, then under my UL, I'm going to do the LI. And there's a few things that we have to put in here. All right, we do want this now to float left. All right, we want, let's see, what else do we want? Actually, for now, let's just put in that. Okay, we'll go back and maybe revisit that in a bit. All right, one thing that we do want to do though is we have to account for our inner nav bar. So that's the UL under the UL. We don't want that to display unless you hover over it. All right, and again, I want to do a little bit of this. Then I want to, after we do that, I want to look at it and see what's happened. Okay, that's looking better already. Now, you may or may not agree with that. All right, this hasn't been positioned yet. That's why all that stuff is stuffed together. There's no margin, there's no padding in there. We'll do that in a bit. But you can see now this is here. All right. Okay. So we've got display none, position absolute, and top 100%. Okay, that's a start. Now, what about those list items that are in there? All right, we do not want them to float. Okay, that's not, I could run it now, but it's not going to look any different. Okay, let's see. Okay, what we want to do next is we want to basically say, hey, when we hover over our list, all right, when we hover over the list that's inside of the list, we want it to display block. If you say, I don't know what you mean, then hold on for a second. This is one of the first times we're using one of those combinators. All right. And you may have to look that up. It was in your book. All right. So this is, and I may have goofed that up. I don't think I did, but this is UL, the LI underneath there. If we are hovering over it and there is a UL, if there is an unordered list under it, we want it to display block. All right. We haven't totally linked this up yet, so it's not really looking a heck of a lot different right now. Okay. And there's a few more things we got to put in here, just so you know. All right. Oops. Let me move that up a bit. There we go. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're saying UL after. And basically, we just want to make sure everything is set up afterwards. All right. So there's no content. Clear everything and display it block. Now, with some of this stuff, boy, oh boy, with some of this stuff, with some of this, it's not going to look all that different until we come in and make more changes. So I don't know if this is going to look any different yet or not. All right. It's not, it is hidden now. All right, and that's good. So we're going to go in now and make the rest of the changes that we have to make to hopefully make that look the way that it's supposed to look. All right. Now we did before we came in and we had set up the UL. We said list style none, okay? And we said position relative, okay? But we have not really set up any margin. We have not really set up any padding. We're going to do that, but we're going to do it not in the UL itself. So we're going to say here margin 0, padding 0. And the only thing I can tell you is with some of this stuff, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? When we get done, start removing some stuff. Or even better, don't remove anything. Comment it out. All right. So now I'm going to come in here and do this. Now you should see some big changes. Because this is for the links themselves. And remember, we can just say pound FFF here, and would be better to probably say pound 000 here to make it black. All right, now I'm going to come right back to this, but let me do a save all. And now let's take a look at what we have. And you see it's starting to really look a lot different. All right, it's looking more the way that it's, well, I guess that's the way it started to look. But the picture that we did before, let's see, there. That's looking more the way we want it to look. Now, we still haven't brought this in. We have to do that. We have to style these, and we have to get that orange there. We're going to do that right now. All right. But when you go back and look at this, text align center, display block. All right. Remember, when you display something in a block format, you're saying you basically want it to all go on one line. We're setting the width for the nav bar. We're giving it some padding. We're telling it we don't want the underlines. We are changing the background color to black. All right. And the foreground color, or the color of the links themselves, to white. All right. Are there any questions on any of that stuff? We're almost done here, but not quite. Any questions?
So maybe this is something to go over at the break, but I'm having the same issue that I was having yesterday, and I've been double checking. I think it's with my HTML, because when I took out all the CSS, it still looked not right. Like my nav menu, they're not showing up as links. The unordered list below decorating ideas is showing up as the green, or the orange and underlined, and they're
Okay.
working links, but every other thing in my every other list item is just text. So when I go to format it, it's not formatting
Then
quite right.
normally I would look in here,
Yeah.
and I would look to make sure that you've closed the tag. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah.
And why don't you do that as you get the time? And what I'll do is right before we take our first break, I'll make sure, or when we finish this, I will go back line by line. We can go back and look over the HTML to see if you can find the error.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, sure. All right. So we don't have too much stuff left in here. All right. Let's see. Again, the order in which you put these things in really and truly isn't going to matter. I tried to work my way down. So that's the menu itself. That's the unordered list. That's the unordered list items, etc. All right. And I'm looking to make sure I didn't miss anything because I'm working off my own copy on this stuff. So really the ULLI right here, I'm being a little picky, but that should have actually gone before this one as we're working our way through here. It doesn't matter though. The order in which you put these things doesn't matter. I do find that keeping your stuff grouped together does help a lot. All right. Because, you miss something or you do whatever. That's why if you work your way down, kind of the way I've done it here, like I said, in my humble opinion, it makes more sense to do that. Now, not everybody agrees with that, and that's okay. Again, I'm looking through to make sure I didn't miss anything here. Okay. And you probably have already figured this out, but it's really, really, really simple. All right. That, you miss one thing in here, stuff isn't going to work the way you want it to work. All right. And you look at something and you're like, well, why don't we have anything here? Why don't we have, that's usually why. All right. But you will after. Good. We already did that. All right. Let's try to do the last couple things here. All right. That's So those are all the ULs. Under the ULs, those are all of our anchor, our links, but just the one with current. So we want that color to be orange. And hopefully you notice this too. It is considered, and don't ask me why, because I can't tell you that. It's considered kind of amateurish to actually put the color name in there. You should at least be using instead the hex reference. And you can see here, if I go over to pound FFA500, okay, I get orange. Again, it's just, for lack of better words, that's something that most people will tell you, yeah, you really should do it that way. All right, now let me move this. I'm going to copy this. All right, then for this one right here, this is going to be menu ULLI. This is when we hover. And also, when it has the focus. And we are told in those cases that it should be gray. Again, I'm just following the specs here. And that is 80, 80, 80. All right, now let's take a look. One thing that worried me looking at this is I didn't see, yeah, it's not showing my drop down. So I'll have to look at that. All right, but notice now I'm getting these messages because these haven't been built yet. All right, but when I do come in here and I click, it turns gray. And that's what we're told it should do. Now, for some reason, something is goofed up because under my decorating ideas, all right, so the first thing I'm going to do before we fix this, so to speak, all right, is I'm going to go in and take a quick look at my HTML. And you all probably know this already, but this is the kind of thing where there can be an error either in the HTML or there can be an error in the CSS, all right, or both, unfortunately. All right, so we didn't change anything in the header, so let me look in the nav section here. First UL looks okay. So I'm going to look in the inner one right here. Yeah, that looks fine as far as I can tell. So I'm not sure why that's not printing yet, but we're going to go on anyway. All right, and see if it somehow works itself out as we go on. All right, I'm going to go down. Now we're at this sidebar right here. All right, and float left, yeah, pixels, etc., etc. All right, and I'm trying to remember. Let's take a quick look over here. Give me just a second here. All right. So when we come down to here, where we had this aside, okay, well, what we want to do down here, and I didn't put it in, so I'm going to right now. Or did I? Yeah, there it is. So we want that aside. So this is what we're working with now. Now, we didn't give this any kind of an ID. Well, we call the other one nav bar, and that's historically its name. It's going across the top. So I call this one nav list. Again, you don't want to call them the same thing because they are going to be styled in different ways. All right, so now it's not going to look any different if we run it right now. So let's just run over to here. Okay, so we've got the aside and we've got that stuff that was in here. All right, and really this, I'm going to get rid of this because that's the only other thing that's in here for the aside. Okay, and now I'm going to start putting in the nav list stuff. Some of it'll look similar to what we did before, such as list style none. All right, but let's add some padding. And we want to make sure we're going to add left padding here because we don't want it pushed against the side. All right, and again, when people ask, well, how did you know how much? It's just an eyeballing type of thing. All right. Now we're not done yet. We are not finished yet, but let's take a look and see with what we've done so far. How does it look at all different? All right. You're starting to see that it's looking different. It's not there yet. All right. But it's getting there. Okay. And the main reason that we're not done yet is we didn't actually do the A's. All right. So the anchor tags themselves. All right. I'll come right back to it, but let's see if it's looking now the way that it's supposed to be looking. All right. And there we have that. So let's go back. This is what I've added then right here. So we told it to display block. All right. Font weight bold. And there's different ways that you can do the bold. Okay. Text decoration none to remove the underlines. Make sure the background color is orange. Put in some padding. If you don't like those numbers that are in there, if you have a hard time understanding M's, so we haven't really gone over them, just go back and change them yourselves. Make it like 5 pixels, 0, 5 pixels, 5 pixels. And if that's not enough, make it bigger. All right. And then the color is black. And remember in here that the padding is the area that's in here. So remember, the padding is the area. It is the area that is between the content, which are these names, and the border that we put in. All right. So we're in section now. Let's look at section and see if anything in here has changed. The width looks fine. H1, that looks okay. That first letter, that looks okay. The H2, that's all right. H3 is okay. P tag looks okay. But there's a couple things that we have to put in here. All right, what do I mean? Well, if we go back and look on this section, we do have inside of these sections, all right, we've got the image, but we've got that. And right now we're not doing anything with that. All right, as far as styling it, we're not doing anything. Okay, so let's go back in here. Whoops. Sorry about that. Let's go back in here then and jump back into here. All right, and under our section P, let's add a section A, again, for our links. We're told to make that orange. All right, we're also told, so I'm just going to copy this because it's going to look pretty much the same. And that is, let me get rid of that font weight, that when we've got an A link and when it's been visited, we want it to be orange as well. All right, finally, we're told that when we hover over it, we want it to be green. And again, green, red, green, blue should be 00FF00. All right. Now, if you don't like that green, you can play around with it any way you want to by coming in here. All right. So let's do a file save all. Go back and take a look. All right. So one thing that's still not working is when I click on here, it is not showing my down. And I don't know why. I'm basing this off of what I did earlier and it worked just fine, but it doesn't. So I will take a look at it by going back first and checking out quickly. All right, going back out and checking my HTML. Promised we do that anyway, so let's go back and do that. But we'll get it to work. I'm not worried about it. All right, and after we do this, we'll take a break and then we'll come back and we'll do the other one to make it responsive. All right. Probably. Well, I guess it's okay to do it like this. I was going to say I could have indented that a little bit more, but I think it looks fine the way it is. Hopefully everybody can figure out what I'm trying to do here. Okay. Good. All right. I don't see any problems in my HTML, so I'm going to go back and quickly try to do it quickly at least. You start to see, and you're going to see this when I go over the pretest too, that after a while, there's a good chance that the CSS, the size of the CSS file, as far as number of lines, could very well eclipse the number of lines that you have of actual content in the HTML file. All right, because the more granular you get and the more things you try to change, all right, the more code it's going to take. When I say code, I mean more CSS. Let me look at this, and then we are taking a break. Now, I played around with this a little bit, just so you know. Let's see. This stuff, font weight, visited, hover. I'm going to get rid of these. In fact, I'm not going to. I'm going to comment them out because I think I've already handled them, but I'm not positive. So let me just grab all these for now, at least comment them out. I've got them there in case I do need them. All right, but I don't think I will. All right, so this was my header. That was all the background stuff. I think I put a border bottom in there. I'm going to get rid of that. Look, there's my image. All right, then we came to the nav bar. Hmm. Oh, as far as I can tell, it looks exactly like the other copy or my original copy, and which works. But I don't know why, trying to figure it out, why this is not showing when I'm going over to here. It's not showing the menu underneath. Everything else, whoops, that's the wrong one. Try it again, get rid of that. And that isn't showing. Everything else, I believe, is correct right now, but that's not showing. So we're going to take a break. It is 9:02. I'm going to give you till 9:15, and I'm just going to sit right here, but I'm going to be looking to try to see if I can figure out why it's not showing what it's, it's the drop down. So let's take a break and we'll come back in 13 minutes, please, at 9:15. And once we do, if I find what my error was, I'll let you know. Otherwise, we are going to go on and we're going to do the one from chapter 8 for shape up. And I will look at this later. I will find out what the problem is. All right. And I will, if I have to, I'll send you an email on it. So come back in 12 minutes, please.
Professor,
Yes,
so I was looking for my issues and I ended up going to the validator to see if I had any errors based on what I
right.
was
No,
dealing
that's a
with.
good
And
idea. Uh-huh,
I didn't get my solution with my formatting and the links working on my navigation menu, but I was also having the same issue with the second tier,
uh-huh.
and I fixed it. And it was after decorating ideas, my closing tag was right there, and I needed to switch it to after the second unordered list.
This one?
Um, yeah, that right after that, there needs to be a list item closing tag for the one that's right after decorating ideas in line 21.
21, right here.
That list item closing tag, I moved to under that unordered list in line 27, and it worked for me.
Well, but if we do that, so I think what you're saying is put an unordered list tag here. Is that correct?
No, not the closing for the unordered list, the list item. The list item tag in line 21 moves to after the unordered list closing tag in line
Ah, I
27.
see what you're saying. That makes sense. Sure. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. You put that here,
Yeah, that's
like
exactly
that.
what
There
I
you
had
go.
before. Yeah.
And now that I'm looking at it, yep, that's what I did. Hey,
So I still couldn't
that's
figure out
great.
my
Hey,
problem, but
yeah.
uh,
Well, let's make sure. Well, thank you. And I'm going to give you credit for it too. So let's see. There it is. Yeah, that was it. Boy, it's sometimes too. Well, let's just start back up. It's a minute early, but
yeah.
Grant has just found the error in my ways. And one thing is, if you've never heard this before, I used to tell this to my classes when I was teaching in the classroom all the time, that when I was lecturing, I appreciated if people would stay in the class, but once I was done, or if it was a lab, when you get that frustrated, walk away for a couple minutes. The best thing you can do sometimes is just walk out of the room and walk up and down the hall or do whatever. All right. I'll always remember this. If I've told you this already, I'm sorry, but I found this funny that years ago, I was asked if I wanted to teach a class for senior citizens. And I thought, well, that'd be interesting if nothing else. Plus, they offered me $50 an hour to do it. And it was just a week long. So it was during the summer. And I thought, yeah, that's fine. It was not at Rankin, it was at a different college. And the one thing I'll always remember is the class met from 8:30 to 11:30, Monday through Friday, and just for 1 week. And I got there at 7:45, and almost every student was in there already, 45 minutes early. And I said, the class doesn't start for 45 minutes yet. And they were like, yeah, we're fine. But I had one gentleman in the class, he kept getting so frustrated. It was just incredible. Now, what I told him, I wouldn't tell you today because we've got battery backup and the like, but this was years ago. I said, if you ever get that upset, unplug the darn machine because you're in charge. The machine isn't. And he ended up doing it a couple times. But you could just see so much of the problems that he was having just lifted from him after he did that. All right. So, what the error was, and again, Grant was good enough to find it out for me. All right. What the error was when we have this one in here, the decorating ideas, rather than ending the unordered list there, which is what I was doing, you want to actually end it after. You want to end the unordered list, or the list item, I should say, the ending list item that was there. So this ending LI, you don't want it there. Okay? No, because technically this right here is part of this right here. And since it's a part of it, we should really be ending that list item down here. All right. And once you do that, it appears as though at least everything else appears to work. All right. So now if you put your mouse here, this is kind of ugly. You know, there's ways around this. First of all, I would have put separators in here. You know, like we could just come in here if we could do it right now if we wanted to, and just put underneath each one of these, we could format it so it would have a border bottom, and we could make it white. It'd look a little nicer to do that. Plus, you know, again, how you do this is up to you, but I find that it's a little irritating right now. You may agree, you may not agree. All right, so thank you again, Grant, and I'm going to head on to the next problem. All right, so let me save that and that. And so for the next one that we are supposed to do, we are supposed to do the shape up. And with the shape up, so again, I'm just going to do this one here. All right. I didn't, you know, I don't even know what I did with the third one, but this one right here, right now, as you can see, it is totally, and I mean totally not responsive. All right. So what we want to do is we want to make this responsive. All right. Hopefully all that makes sense. So let's take a look at that one. So again, first, let's go back and let's look at this. All right. So in this exercise, you'll enhance the home page. You worked on an exercise 7 so that it uses responsive web design. Now remember, the assignment that's due next Sunday, the 12th, that one is going to involve you using Flexbox. You do not have to use Flexbox in this assignment. So we are going to be making it responsive basically by, you know, more than anything else, by just the use of media queries. All right. Okay. So with that said, we want this. And again, you'll notice we got more in here, but this in here, one of these was for the 3 column and one of them's not. So let's just go take a look at all the specs in here. All right. So make a copy of the main style sheet and rename it main RWD.CSS, then modify it so that we're using that one instead. So in other words, we want our link to be using that one. Modify the page so that it uses a fluid layout. The maximum width of the page should be 1024 pixels, occupying 95% of the browser window. All right, adjust the left and right margins and padding as well. If you use pixels for any top or bottom margin, convert them to ems. They showed you how to do that in the book. All right. In addition, if you specified any of the font sizes using pixels, convert them to percentages or ems. Again, the advantage of using ems or percentages is those are relative size-wise. All right. In fact, a lot of people will tell you, I shouldn't even say put it that way. I have talked to professional web developers who try to always make sure that when they are creating sites now, they try to go in a mobile first way of doing things. And many of them have told me that they use percentages whenever possible. All right. Make the image header scalable. Make sure that the width of the image is limited to its native size of 140 pixels, and it can't be reduced to less than 70 pixels. All right. Then our specs. So specs for media in portrait orientation. Okay. Add a meta element to the page to control the viewport. Well, we're already doing that. If you have been creating yours with the line in there with the device width, basically type of thing. All right. Add a media query that will be applied to screens with a maximum width of 900 pixels, then add styles to remove the shadow from the page, reduce the size of the fonts to 90%. So we're just trying to pretty it up, in other words. For landscape, again, another media query, you can read that yourselves. But what we really want to have happen is when it gets small enough, we want this to go away. All right, when we get to a certain size, and we want it to be replaced with the slick nav menu. Now, you were given the slicknav.css file. All right, so I don't think we have to play with that one at all. Okay, so let's see. And then there's the mobile phone. All right. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here. And again, we're going to go back then and do it later using Flexbox, and then do it again later using Grid. The big difference that you're going to find in here is when we get into chapter 9, if you haven't started looking at those exercises yet, is you won't have any floats. You'll be taking anything that's a parent of something else that you will want to be changing. All right. And that basically you'll set up to display flex. And then when necessary, you'll take those children and you'll do whatever you have to do with them, align them or whatever. What I did, or what I've been doing, is I tried to come up with some exercises. And when I say exercises, I'm going to give you what I'm working on, but I just created something real simple. And I tried to put in as much of the Flexbox stuff in there as I could. So you could have like a kind of like a sandbox where you could play with this stuff. All right. So right now it's not doing much of anything that we want it to do. So it's time to start changing that. So I'm going to bring up in here this chapter 8. I'm going to bring it up again. We still have this one open here. Let me close that. And this one, I think I closed that already. So let me do a file. Try that again, a file. Let's close our folder. There we go. File, we'll open the other folder. All right, so we've got everything in here right now. And I'm going to start with, as I did before, with the index, and then we will go into the, under styles, we will go into the, thought I changed the name of this, but I guess I didn't, but we will. I'm not worried about it at all. So let's start by looking at the index that's in here. All right, see what changes and what doesn't change. All right. 8. Now, remember that when we start brand new, so if I were to come in here, you don't have to do this, but if I came in here and right here I created a new file and I called it junk.html, and I come in and hit the exclamation point and hit tab, you already know all that stuff that happens. This is the line here that we care about. So I'm going to copy that line. I'm going to get rid of junk. All right, so under this junk, I'm just going to get rid of it. And now I'm going to jump back into my index file. Someplace in here, and you might as well put it right after the other meta tag. We can come in here and we can put in that. That is when they asked for you to go in there and basically put in the line. And in fact, let me view word wrap. Okay. Again, what this is saying is viewport is whatever medium you're using to look at the web page. What you're telling it is the width should be the width of whatever device you're using, and it should scale to 100%. They did mention in your textbook other settings that you can have. I don't think I've ever changed it and used any other setting, to be honest with you. All right. Now, the other thing they told us to do, and I didn't do it, so I'm going to do it now. They told us to go in here and rename this. And we can do that, but I like to just keep what we had in there to begin with. So I'm going to copy, I'm going to copy it and then paste it. All right. So I'm going to copy it and paste it. And no, it didn't put it in there. So let me cut it and paste it back in there. All right. So there's, oh, it didn't do it there either. Okay. Let me do this. I'm going to rename this. I think they want you to call it main RWD or something like that. All right, so we've got this. I want this to go underneath styles. You should be able to just click on it and move it too. And like that, so let me try it again. There we go, styles. Do I want to move this into stress? No, I want to move it into styles. Oh my goodness, I'll do it this way. There's main AWD, move it into styles, move here. Double check and make sure it's there. There's main RWD. Okay, sorry about that. That shouldn't have taken that long. All right, so now as you can see, it's in there. All right, so those are the two files I'm going to be worrying about. So we came in and we added this. Okay, shortcut icon, our style sheets. There's normalize. All right, and this will be main underscore RWD. All right, plus one of the other ones, and I don't know if it's in there or not. Let me look. We don't have slick nav in there. There is no slick nav in there, but what you should notice is in the folder that you were given at the beginning of the semester. So if I go to here, this is that your name, AWD, etc. And I go into here and I go into labs and I go into there and I go under styles. There is slick nav right there, .css. So I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to come into here, into my shape up, and I'm going to paste that in. All right, so now when I come back into here, it should show slick nav as being in there. There it is. Okay, now that's all fine, but until I actually bring it in, all right, the system doesn't even know that it exists. Okay, and in fact, let's see, I think there's, let me double check here. So that's slicknav.css. So let's bring in that one. Okay. And I believe there's also a JavaScript file that we need to bring in. So let me double check that as well. Now, they're not, we're bringing this stuff in, but that said, you might say, well, I don't even know how to use that. And it's okay. All right. So I'm going to grab this jQuery slick nav that's in here, min.js. I'm going to copy that to the clipboard. And then in here, I'm going to come in, close a few things here to make it a little easier to see. And I'm going to add a new folder that's called JS for JavaScript. And in that JS folder, I'm going to add that file. All right. In fact, I wonder if I can do it like this. Can I paste? No, of course it won't let me. Okay, so there's my JS and there's nothing in there. So I'm again going to just grab it from here. So there's that slick nav. Copy it here. There it is. Now, again, and I know we have done nothing virtually with JavaScript. That said, and now look in here, there's the file. We have to bring that file in. All right. So I don't want to go into JavaScript right now, but in order to bring a JavaScript file in, it's not a link. You say script and then source equals, and that, whoops, that's under the JS folder. Try that again. It's under the JS folder, and there it is, like that. So you bring that in, and you have to put an ending script tag in there. Also, in order to run this, we're gonna need to put in another line of code. I don't know why they did this now, but hey, I didn't write the book. What they put in here, I think, is for completeness. Okay, but just so you know, that right there, to say script and put this in, this is not mandatory. That's what's known as a MIME type, which is some kind of a multimedia, internet, some kind of extension. And we haven't been doing this, but you can also put in here for any CSS file, you could put in type equals text slash CSS. Putting in the MIME type used to be mandatory. It is no longer mandatory. All right. But put it in there just to remind you, or because you'll see it sometimes. And I didn't want it where you'd be like, well, what the heck is that? Now, what this is doing is basically, it is, for lack of better words, providing us access to be able to use SlickNav. All right. And that's the easiest way I can explain it to you right now. This is material that's from the other book. So if you say, well, geez, I didn't know that. Yeah. And like I said, I'm not sure exactly why the authors decided to even bring this in. Because what's going to happen is after you start learning other things, there are better ways of doing this than to use SlickNav. It's not that there's anything wrong with SlickNav. There's not. But there are better ways of doing it, I think, than the way that they're showing it in here. So. And I believe, let's see. So what did I miss here? So I think I put an extra ending. There we go. And again, and that's pre-pen, not pre-pent. Okay. All we're telling it to do is when we get down into a mobile view, we're telling it to replace, we're going to tell it to replace the regular menu that we have with SlickNav. And what SlickNav again does is, or what it's going to do, is it's going to put that little hamburger menu there. So it'll have the word menu on it with 3 bars. And when you click on the bars, it will still show you the regular menu. And again, that is for mobile devices. All right, so we'll have to make sure that when we go and work with this, we are working with something that is of, in our media query, we'll have to make sure that it's of a certain pixel size. All right. And if I confused you there, I apologize. I didn't know any other way to explain it. All right. I thought of even just putting the stuff in here, but I thought at least you could see me put it in. All right. All right. So let's jump into here. Got our nav menu. You notice that here, if I'd have looked at this one, all right, they did it right here. And then there's diet, etc. I don't know if we have to change much of anything else in here. I'm looking quickly. And again, the way this is formatted here is just terrible, to be honest with you. This is one time I can see actually putting in and doing it like this. I mean, this is how I would do it, to be honest with you. Would be like that. And then I would even have a space here. All right. And I've got mine set up that when it auto saves, it goes back and it redoes it. So when I do a save all, see how it pushes it back again? Yours may have that, it may not. If you go, how do I get that? We're going to go over that in a couple of weeks. All right, so you will see it. All right. So for now, at least, I don't think there's going to be much of anything else I have to do in here. All right. Now you're not going to see anything. So when I do a file, save all or save, and I right mouse click in here and I open it with live server, it's not going to do much that it, as far as what it did before. In other words, it's still not responsive. We haven't built that in yet. All right. So we made the changes we made, for lack of better words, were pretty superficial. All right. But we did tell it to get ready. Okay. Let's go in then and take a look at the CSS, which we have renamed as main RW underscore RWD. Oh, and that's one thing too. Since I renamed it, I think I renamed it in here too, didn't I? What did I do here? Oh, I'm in the wrong file. Oh my goodness. There we go. Yeah, main RWD. So that's in there. Good. All right, so let's look at the index. I'm sorry, let's look at the main rwd.css file. Okay. Now, it's told us in here that it wants us to make some changes. So let's start with those changes. First of all, the width should be 95%. All right, not 900 pixels. We're using, again, we are using a value of percentages, a relative format versus an exact type of format. We're also told that it should have a max width of 1024 pixels. All right, margin's fine, padding's fine, border's okay, box shadow's okay. That's all fine. So we changed those two lines right there. All right, again, the width had been 900 pixels, an exact amount. We gave it a relative amount of 95%, and we gave it a max width. All right, our H1, H2, and H3, we're just removing the padding there. That's okay. All right, our A tags, text decoration none, font weight bold, that looks okay. All right, our hover and our focus, maroon. Again, I wouldn't have picked that color, but it's fine. All right, and the styles for the header, that looks okay. Okay, now we're going to start making some changes here. When we have images, we're going to want things to change. All right, such as, well, we want the width to change here. And I'm going to put in here 15.55%. A max width of 140 pixels and a min width of 70 pixels. And I honestly I don't remember where I got this from, but these two things were both in the specifications. All right. I believe that is, if we do the math here, let's do it. Let me see. I'm trying to remember. I did this last summer, but I think what we did here, bring up the calculator, is I think we said 140. All right, which is our max there, times 990, which is kind of what we'd set up here someplace. All right. And then I multiplied that by 100. Oh, I had to do a divide, not a multiply. Try that again, Jeff. All right, 140 divided by 90, 990, and then take the result of that and multiply that by 100. All right, so why I've got 15 here and 14 there, I don't know. It wouldn't hurt. I can change the width here too. Let's just do that. 14.1414%. Shouldn't matter at all. All right. Okay. Then our H2, font size doesn't change. Font style is fine, color is fine, text indent, text shadow, margin bottom, that all looks okay. Then the H3. We're told to come in here and start changing some of these to M's. All right. So 45 pixels is equal to 5%. And again, I believe those formulas are all in your book. All right. Otherwise, you'd have to Google it. Sorry, I don't have that off the top of my head. All right. Nav menu, clear left. Now, when you're working with things this small, like 2 pixels, I wouldn't go back and figure out the M's or the REMs or whatever in those. You can, but you really don't have to. All right. So we're going to clear left, 2 pixels, solid steel blue. That looks good. UL, style none, position relative. That looks good. All right, we're giving a percentage there for our navigation menu list items. All right. That's good. That's good. That's good. So you can see not much is changing, but a lot will change when we get to the point where we're into our media queries. So let's look on here. I didn't even put a width in here. That all looks fine. Again, feel free to change this. Whoops, from white to, hashtag FFF if you want to, or leave it alone. Same thing with this next one. And you can do the same thing for the steel blue and the maroon as well. Grab this, try to. And say pound nav menu UL LI. When we're hovering over the LI, hover UL. So again, when we're going into the unordered list under the unordered list, okay. All right. Again, let's change a couple of these. So instead of 565 pixels for the width, it's 62.777%, using that same formula I showed you before. For the padding here, let's change the 5.3333%. 60%. So a lot of these have already been changed or were set up as M's, better words. All right. Change this.
Hello?
Can you hear?
You've broken up for about 30 seconds now.
Oh, I
So can't
changed a
really.
couple things. In the for people. And, and that I went down to was this. And again, that's simple, right? Blue, maroon. Then we should have the footer here. So we got a few lines to add, and we'll add those in just a second. We just double check this again. Get rid of these and replace them with M's. So this is 0.9375 M's. And this is 3.3333%. And the footer, it should be fine the way it is. All right. You're still with me, correct?
Yes, you just got clearer for a second, but you're still cutting in and out a lot.
Well, and I don't know what the problem. We said it was strong, but really, if it, all right. We said mobile. All right. By default, mobile can be our slick nav, but we don't want it to show. All right, when our regular menu is showing, for lack of better words. All right. So let's see. Everything else that we have to do in here, in 40, 50, I don't know, maybe 50 lines full of noise. And when you do this, you can do them, but you're going to be using the same for everything that you're doing. We're not doing that. So we're going to come in here, we'll put a comment in that says media queries. All right, and the first one, one in 900. All right, what do we want? Well, we want the font size reduced to 90%. Why? Because that was in the specs. And we want there to be no box shadow. Okay. Now, I'll come right back to it, but we should be able to test that one fairly easily. So when we come back here, you can see the box shadow is there, but when we start to narrow it down, you can tell, right, come on, right there. So that must be right there, 900 pixels. All right, it's in that general range, let's put it that way. Okay, any questions on this particular media query? All right.
No, I'm just trying to get it down because I just got you back right as you were finishing that up.
Gotcha. I'll leave it there for a minute then.
Thank you.
I wish I knew. The last time I contacted Spectrum, who is what I have for my ISP, all they said was there are no outages in your area. And they put me on hold for 30 minutes and nobody ever came to talk to me. So, all right. So the other ones that we want to do is we want to set it up with 767. So this is going to be our tablet view. All right. You want to call it that. Maybe that's not the best name, but we'll call it that. So that's the first media query. So we're going to put in another one now. So this will be for a maximum width of 767. Okay. So once we get there, we want to change the background. All right. And what we want is we don't want our regular menu to show anymore. So this one, after we put this in, and there's a few lines here, we'll put all of them in. All right. And after we put in those lines, then ideally what's going to happen is when we reach 767 pixels, our main menu will disappear and our slick nav will come into view. All right. So let me move this up. Hopefully you've had a chance to catch up. So again, we're telling it to display none here. We want this to go away, for lack of better words. All right, we want to change the background and we want to decrease the padding. Now, this is going to be something I don't know if we've talked about this before or not. So let me put it in just three or four lines. Now, this is the first time that you've seen that we're using the exclamation point important right there. What that will do is it's meant to override. So if the background is supposed to be another color, and when you look at ours, our background is, well, it's white or some form of that. All right. And we're talking in here, okay, I believe. But what we're saying is, even if it's supposed to be something else, putting in the at important says basically override anything else that's in there. Now, you can go out on the web and find a lot of articles that will tell you not only should you limit the usage of it's usually called bang important, you shouldn't use it at all. All right. Just because what happens is people get so enamored with using the exclamation sign or bang important that they use it all over the place. And they put something in there and then they overwrite it, with a exclamation point or bang important. Then they override that later with another bang important. All right. So just be real leery of using that. All right. Now the point is, and you can use it any place, not just in Slick Nav like we are here. You literally can use it anywhere. Just because you can do something, though, doesn't mean you should. All right. Okay. Well, remember, we had turned this off earlier, this mobile menu. Now we want it to display block. All right, that's going to bring it back when we're under 767 pixels. All right, we want the background color of these. Remember, you can say either just background or background color. We want that to be that steel blue. want this background color to be steel blue. All right, so this is what we've changed in the mobile menu so far. And one more. And that is, I'm going to just grab this, put it down here. So this is mobile menu A, hover. Now, a lot of people like to just put it right next to this. So in other words, we want to put this, but with focus on it. So a lot of people do it like this, and feel free to do that if you'd like. I like to separate this and put it on another line. There's no big deal one way or the other. All right, doing it that way or not doing it that way. And this is supposed to be light steel blue. All right. Again, I'm not making this stuff up. All right, a couple more things that we have to put in there, and then we'll be able to test it to see whether or not it works. All right, so hopefully you've had a chance to put in this stuff right here. And I'm going to move that up pretty much to the top here. All right. One more. All right, I'll leave those up there, but first let me do a save. And let me just bring it up just to see if I've screwed up anything or if I haven't. Knowing me, I probably have, but let's just bring this up. All right, so you see its size now. Still is that size. All right, it's not showing it on here, and I don't know why. It is responsive, and that's good news. This looks funky in here, but it should be, this should look a lot nicer than it is, but the rest of it, I believe, is working the way we want it to work. So again, I'll have to go back, but um, there's literally about 10 more lines that we have to put in here, and then we're done with the media queries. And we'll take a break, and during the break, I'm going to double check my code to see if I've screwed up anything, and then we'll come back, take one last look at this, and once we do, we will start then on the pretest. All right. Okay. So I'm going to jump back in here, and I'm going to jump back into the CSS. All right. And we're going to put in one more media query. And this is literally for cell phone view. And actually, I think some people will tell you maybe even smaller cell phones. Good. All right, so that should be all of the last one. I'll give you a second to put that in. I'm going to run it, and we're going to take another break. Still looks funky here. You'll have to fix that. So you can see how it's changing when we reach certain points. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure why this looks the way it does, but I will take a look at it, of course, during the break. All right. So my question is, before we go to a break, um, questions on anything that I've done in here?
I don't think like real questions, but I guess for the break, could you show your code before the media queries that you added after the footer? I saw one, but I didn't know if there was more because the screen was freezing up at that point.
Okay, so you're saying after the footer,
Oh, if it was just that mobile menu, then I got that.
okay. All right, then it's 10:04. Let's take till 10:15. We'll pick it up. I'm going to stay right in here again, and I'm going to look at all of my CSS during the break and see if I screwed up any place. And if I didn't, I'm going to go back and quickly look at my HTML. So come back at 10:15, please. That's all right. We're going to start back up. Let me double check and see now if I've fixed everything. Still not showing that. Got just about all of it done, and I want to show you everything that I've done during the break. The majority of the stuff that was in here was the majority of the mistakes that were in here were in the CSS. But first, let me show you what I found so far. Mistakes I made in the HTML. I'd like you to go down, please, where we added this section in here. I forgot the pound sign on nav menu. So that was probably line 14 for you. Right? $ document dot ready. This is what's called jQuery. You don't have to worry about it for right now. All right, so that was the first thing. Make sure you add a pound sign in right here. All right. The second thing is, we never told it to show the mobile menu. You've got to add this line. I would add it right up above where you just did your nav ID equals nav menu. Put a line above that. You don't need this, of course. All right. But you do need this. We were never telling it to actually show the mobile menu. That was why it wasn't doing anything. Now that's as far as I got during the break, because I found a few things that were wrong in the, I found a few things that were wrong inside of the CSS. So hopefully you've had a chance to fix both those. I'm going to go look during the next break between lines 28 and line 138 to see if I forgot anything. All right, or mistype something or whatever. Then I'm going to jump back into the CSS. All right, I tried to annotate when I changed things or added things, so you can see in here. Now, with most of the stuff that I changed, it's not going to matter at all. So for instance, in line 9 here, I removed the pixels that were in there and replaced them with M's. So feel free to do that. I'll have to check before I talk to you next, before tomorrow, but I think for the test, there's nothing in there where you have to be going nuts with M's and whatever. All right, so that was the first thing. We changed that again from pixels to M's. That was the first one, I believe. That was first. Yep. Line 9. Then going down a little further, same kind of thing here on line 29. This had a pixel amount. We could make this, I think this is like 0.9375 M or something like that. Yeah, 100. So you can, if you want to, change this. You can leave it alone, which is totally fine, or you can change it to 0.9375 M. It's going to do the same thing. So it really doesn't matter one way or the other. Usually, again, when they're this small, you don't change them. Here, with the width, I did change it back to what I had originally, and I don't remember. I remember changing that, but I don't remember why I did it. It should work fine whether you use the 14.1414% or whether you use the 15.5555%. Should not matter. Then in your header 2, again, this indent was done with pixels, and I went back and changed that to percentages. And I believe that's all I could find in there that was put in there incorrectly. All right. So again, when you do that and you make those changes, it's not 100% yet, but it's getting there. In other words, when we do reach that point, our menu does go away. Well, you'll notice, first of all, let's look and see if our gradient goes away there. You can see there, I shouldn't even say the gradient, the shadow, and it is. And when we reach that point, our menu is leaving too. But I should have the slick nav menu here, and it's not showing. I don't know why. All right. Everything else is working. I will look at that during the next break. All right. It's taking a little longer than I thought it would, but that's on me, not on you. Okay. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start literally with a clean slate. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a new folder. And I'm just going to call this pretest. All right. And then that pretest, to start with at least, I'm going to create another folder that's called CSS. And inside of my CSS, I'm going to put a document in there that is going to be styles.css. And I'm going to make an images folder. I'll copy over those images later. I don't worry about them right now. All right. And I'm going to put in a new file. That's my index.html file. Okay, so I literally am starting brand new with everything in here. And let's go back and let's open this pretest with code. Okay. Now I think I still have the other one open, so let me close this. File save first and then file exit. I will bring that one up and try to look at it again during the break. See if I can figure out why that wasn't coming up. So let's come back in here and start writing some code. All right. I'm going to literally try to save some time here by coming in. Where are we? Did I don't know what I did there. So close it. Maybe I closed the wrong one. There it is. All right. So in my index here, I'm going to put in my percents or my exclamation point and tab, and I'll just call this pretest. It doesn't matter. All right. And start putting in some code. All right. In fact, that's fine. Let's have our link to our style sheet. Okay, that looks pretty good there. So that's everything that should be everything that's set up for that. Let me do a view in word wrap. Okay, and let's go into our body section. And let's see. I'm looking, I don't even think I used a header in here, which I probably should have, but I went right in and said, I want to show you something because this is different. I've never found this in a book. I was online reading some article and the guy did this and I thought, how the heck did he do that? And he didn't explain it. So I'm going to say ID equals navbar. All right. And then underneath that, I'm going to put in nav. And I'm going to put in a href equals home home. Let's copy this 5 times. And this will be about. Resume. And finally, oh, that's resume. Portfolio and contact. I don't know how, somehow I lost my pound signs in there, but. And home, about, resume, portfolio, and contact. Now, this may not look like a real big thing to you. Maybe it really isn't. But you'll notice in here, I've done absolutely zero. Right now, my CSS file is empty. All right, but if I do a file, save all, and I right mouse click and I open it with live server, you'll notice I've already got my links and they're already put in there in a horizontal fashion as opposed to vertical. All right, and they don't have the list style type has been set to none. All right. Like I said, that guy, I just watched this guy's presentation and that's what he did. I wish I'd recorded what presentation it was because I don't really remember. All right. A lot of times when I'm doing different things, I'll just go back and start Googling stuff. So that's right now, that's my nav bar. Okay. And then under the nav bar, I'm going to put everything inside of a wrapper. Is it mandatory that you do this? No. But you'll find a lot of times people do end up doing this. And I'm looking in here, think, yeah, this is going to be basically everything that I put in here is going to be in this big wrapper. All right. When I do this, this is going to look really ugly because I have not yet done any styling. All right. There's not real much that I'm going to do in here, but I'm going to put in a main, this up, and then in my main, I'm going to put in a bunch of sections. The first section, I'll have a div with an ID of home. And I'm going to put an H2 in there that just says home. All right. And I want to do this for basically everything, all 5 of the sections. All right. So I want a section with a div and then section. So I've now got it in there 5 times. I'm going to, of course, change all these. So I want about. So after home the first time, I want this to be about and this to be about. Then this to be resume. And this to be resume. and this to be portfolio, and this to be portfolio, and finally contact and contact. All right. And then the only thing that I want to put down at the bottom after I get done with my main is I want to put a footer in here. And for now, I'm just going to put an H2 in here that says footer, ... All right. So what I've done, I did this as 6 iterations, and I did it as 6 iterations, not to confuse anyone, but I did it as 6 iterations so you can see as I'm building this exactly what happened. So this was my nav bar, home, about, resume, portfolio, and contact. These will be each one of my sections in here. So again, I'll have a home section, followed by an about section, followed by a resume section, followed by a portfolio section, followed by a contact section. And after that, all I did was add my footer. So if I look at it right now, I'm going to do a file, save all, and I'm going to run it. Again, there's been absolutely no CSS put in here. That's what you get. Again, I know it doesn't look very good. Even after my initial swash or adding of CSS, it's not going to look much better. But like I said, I'm purposely building this for you very, very incrementally. All right. So I'm going to come in here and under CSS, I'm going to open up my styles. And I'm eventually going to put things in the body section, but for right now, I'm not going to put anything in there. Now it's not going to like that. All right. It says do not use empty rule sets, but it's a warning. It's not an error. All right. And I'm putting that in there just so I don't forget it later. You can pick any background color in here you like. Mine, I did very muted. So my background is a light gray. All right. And let me go back 1 second here. I'm wondering if I removed something I shouldn't have. All right. And I think that's really all I did for this first iteration here. So again, when I go back here, you may or may not be able to tell. Well, I guess you can. The color has changed. And that's it. Now, I'm not even going to ask, are there any questions there? Because hopefully, at least, everything that I just did, hopefully, makes at least a little bit of sense. All right. So that was go around, or whatever you want to call it, around number 1. So let's go to part 2. Right. And I'm just going to keep doing it like this. Why? Well, a lot of times when I start to build stuff like this, I build it very incrementally, maybe not as incrementally as I'm doing it right here. All right. But I tend to do it quite incrementally. I just find it works out better for me doing it like that. And again, you may agree, you may not agree. All right. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. We call this pretest. I'm going to call this version 1. All right, just so you see that. So now when I do run this, up in my tab here, it says pretest version 1. That's what I want it to say. That said, it's going to sound stupid that I did that because I'm now going to do version 2. All right. So I've got nothing to change in here that I can think about. Got my div ID equal wrapper. All right. Now let's see, what did I change? I don't think I changed anything in here, but I think I started to make changes into my CSS file. So I wanted it to start having some form and function, or whatever you want to call it. All right. So for my nav bar, these are things that you just have to start understanding. What I mean by that is to say position fixed, top left, top 0, left 0, means it should be stuck up on the top. Remember, this position right here on your screen, that position is position 0, 0. That's the origin, if you want to call it that. All right. The height, I'm going to make it at 70 pixels is a pretty standard height. And again, we can change that. So I can divide that, and make it 4 point whatever ever M. I don't care. I used both in here. My background color, I made black. Did a display block. A width of 100%. And I don't know if I did this or not. I don't see it on mine, but someplace in here I wanted to set the color to white. And again, I can go back and change it and use the hex codes, and also this is something we'll talk about later. I'm giving it a Z index of 10. Okay. And why is it complaining now of that? Because I don't have a semicolon there. There we go. All right. So that's the stuff for the nav bar itself. All right. But I want this nav bar to flex. In other words, as I go in and start playing with this nav bar and I make my screen collapse or expand, I want the nav bar to be able to do the same. All right. So there's that pound nav bar. And next, I gave that a class of nav, I think. Well, I want to basically I want to say it that I want the nav that's in there. So the nav that's in nav bar. So in other words, this is going to be my containing element. What does it contain? This stuff. So this basically is, this is my flex container, and these are my flex items. All right. Do that again. So I'm going to say here, display flex. All right. Then inside of here, leave that there. Now, I'm going to change this later, just so you know, but I told it here to flex 0, 0, 20 VH. And if you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. We're going to look at it in just a second. Because this is going to look quite a bit different than it did before. And after the flex, of course, I need a colon. Text align center. All right. So what that should do is I'm telling it not to grow and not to shrink. All right. And I'm telling it to take up, each one of these things that are in there should take up a fifth of the screen. And that's view height. Since I'm setting it to 20, all right, each thing that's in there should take up 20% of the screen. All right. And I'm setting it up like that. So as I build these things out, you can see exactly what's happening. All right. Align the text, set the font size, set the color, almost white. It's a very light gray. All right. Text decoration, none. So get rid of the underlines. 70 pixels, again, is kind of a standard height. All right. set the line height to 2 Ms, and make my cursor, when I put it over that, it should point to a little finger, basically, look like a hand. All right. A few more things that we'll put in here, and then we'll run it and see what it looks like. All right. When I come over here and I've got the A and I hover over it, all right, so when I'm hovering over an item, whoops, try that again. There we go. And again, it's almost black. Here, 0, 0, 0. Oops, F, 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 F. Oh, never. All right. Now for each one of the sections, okay, so for each section that we have in here, we want the height to automatically adjust. The minimum height should be 100 view height. For each section should take up 100% of the screen. All right. Padding. Again, I should have done a better job, but I use pixels here. Right. Couple more things. So that's everything we have in here, but I'm going to add my first media query now. Historically, again, media queries are put at the bottom or in their own CSS file. You can do that as well. Really should have reversed these, but it's okay. Since this is more generic than this is, really should have put that one first. Like that. So let's quickly look at the whole thing in here. All right. Nothing in the body yet. I didn't change the wrapper, but the nav bar has been positioned now, hopefully, if I didn't screw anything up, on the screen. All right. And we want that nav that's in there to become a flex container for these things. All right. And everything that we're showing in here will, the grow and shrink is set to 0. It means don't grow and don't shrink as we change the size. Take up 20% of the screen. Align center. You can see the font size, color, etc. Nothing new there. When we hover, we want it to look darker with lighter text. All right. And our section should be set up like this. Finally, for our media queries, our nav bar should shrink. It was 70 pixels. It should shrink down to 30. And our links that are in here, the size before was like 2M, I think. It's going to shrink down to 1.2M. And again, our height is going to shrink down. Now, is it possible I screwed up? Well, if you've watched the rest of this lecture, you'll sure know that it is. But let's look. Doesn't look exactly the way I want it to look, but it's getting there. Okay. I do have these. Kind of hard to tell, but there is a little bit of an effect here, which is what I wanted to show you. All right. And then there's home. There's about. There's resume. there's portfolio, and there is contact. All right. Questions? Anybody? Any questions on anything I've done thus far? All
Not
right.
right now, no. Thank you.
Okay. And like I said, when you look at yours, if you go, geez, I didn't do it like that. I didn't do it like that. Everybody does these things differently. And that's pretty much, I think, that's pretty much to be expected. All right. And again, I've said this kind of stuff before, but you know, it's like if I told you that we're all going to meet at some place, we're all going to go watch a Cardinals game. So we're all going to meet at Busch. We wouldn't all go there the same way. Even if we live close to one another, we probably wouldn't all go there the same way. All right. And just the same way here, typically people are going to build these things differently. All right. So the next thing I want to do is I do want to pull in those pictures just to make sure I have them. So let me come over to here. Oh, maybe I don't need them yet. Okay, that's fine. Not a problem. Okay, so what we've looked at thus far, when I come in here and run this, we're now in version 2. You saw version 1, you've now seen version 2. I'm going to keep that up there so I don't forget to look at that later. All right, so let's jump back into here. And we'll start by looking at our HTML, and we're going to start making changes into this now. All right. Nothing will change in here, but once I get down into my wrapper area, I'm going to start making some changes. Okay. So in my main section there, and again, if you say, well, why did you do this? Why did you do this? Why did you do this, etc. This, I guess this sounds stupid, but I did it because I did it. All right. I'm not saying it made a whole boatload of sense, but it's just the way that I did it. All right. So let's come in here and start making some changes in here. Okay. I added into this a class that was equal to page. Oops, equal to page. I don't know why I always do that. Class equal page. All right. And then here, what normally, this is going to be kind of the highlight. I think I showed you this already, but when we get done, my hope is, at least when we get done, my hope is that it's going to look like this. Let me bring it up. It's going to look like that. So this is what I call the hero section. All right. And a lot of times that's where you might have an image. You might have something else. It doesn't really matter. Okay. But that's the idea. So the reason I've told you that is going back into where we just were. What I did in here was I put in another div with a class that is equal to hero. Right? Okay. And I've got in there, I don't want it to say home anymore because that's kind of stupid. What it's supposed to say is your name here. And then underneath that, an H3 that says, welcome to my portfolio. Okay. All right. Then we end that div. You move these over and that over. There we go. Then we end that div and then we end this div. So again, this is all together. All right. And then we have this. And inside of here, we have this. Okay, so that's our first section. And again, we're going to be adding more. We're going to be adding more as we go on, but that's pretty much everything that I did in here, other than adding a kind of just a bit at least of CSS. All right, now when I did this, good, bad, or indifferent. I did this and I changed it around about 3 times. So what I'm wondering is what's going to happen here. I'm going to put some code in, but if I may have to take it out because I may not want it in here is what I'm telling you. All right. So I'm going to come into here and underneath, let's see, way up at the top, we've got body, we've got wrapper. Under wrapper, I'm going to put that page class that was in here. So dot page. All right. The height will be auto. The minimum height, and again, this will all change later, will be 100 VH. Padding, and a background color. All right, so let's look at the rest of the CSS. Better spell that correctly, huh? All right, my nav bar hasn't changed. My nav bar nav hasn't changed. I believe this hasn't changed. My hover and my section, let's take a quick look at those. All right, I have that class in here. I think I put a class in here called home, and I think I ended up not using, I'm sorry, an ID of home, and I think I ended up not using it, but I'm going to just put that there so I know it's there. All right. But now what I do want to come in here is and start making some changes to is my hero section. Let me lift this up. Now I made the background color white. Okay, so I could just come in here and say white or pound FFF, but I also wanted to mute it a little bit. So it says I used the RGB A for the alpha, and I put in 255, 255, 255, but then added 0.5. Might even give it a little bit of a washed out look. Width 80%. Margin 100 pixels auto. So 100 pixels top and bottom, right and left, center. Round it a little bit. Give it some padding. Okay. That's the hero part itself, but the hero has in it an H2 and an H3. In fact, let's just make that a straight black. Okay, that'll stand out more. And let's make that 3M. And we'll make this 2M. Oops. Try that again. Okay. And I don't believe I changed anything in my media queries as of yet. So let's check. Pixels, no, I did not. So let's take a look at it here after I went in, and this is now version 3. Let me do a file save all. Don't know why these should be stretched apart and they're not, but you can see what's in here so far. And let's see, when I shrink it down, okay, you can see what's happening. There you go. That is not acting the way that it's supposed to, but it did shrink. Oh, I'll bet you I know what it is. This is way, let's, yeah, this, well, let's see at 100% what it looks like. Okay, there we go. That should be centered. That'll have to work on later. It's still, all right. All of the rest of it looks okay, but I just have to work on that. Did you have a comment?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard something. So,
Uh,
all right. Well, that is, like I said, I broke it up into 6 iterations, and I'm missing something because mine was centered here, and I don't know why it's not. I should be able to come in here and say, let's do this. I think this will work. Here, we did the nav, did a display flex, text align center. I do an align item center. Oh, this has been that kind of morning. Like I said, it's working for the most part, and I'll fix the rest of it before tomorrow. I'm not worried about it. But you can see how that shrunk down, how the size here shrunk. Still not sure. I'm missing something in my CSS, but it's no biggie. We'll fix it. All right, I'm going to do one more portion of this, and that's going to be it. We actually got further today than I thought I was going to get anyway, so that's good. Well, all I can tell you is my version 4 has completely, on my copy that I'm using, has been corrupted. So let me go and bring it up in here. All right. So here is where I came in and started doing the section part. And I may have told you this before. I may not have. I don't remember. But just to show you, if I come in here and type in, I'm going to get rid of this right away. But if I put in a paragraph, okay? So I come in here and just put in a paragraph. Again, this isn't a gee whiz type of thing at all. But if I come through here and I put in a paragraph, there, shouldn't have been that hard, Jeff. Okay, like this. I can type in, let's say I know I want a paragraph with 100 words in it. I can type in Lorem 100, and of course it is. I should be able to hit tab, and of course nothing. It's working like everything else is working today. But that should automatically put that in for me, 100 words. All right. The only reason I'm telling you that is in here where it says about, please read my story below, thanks. That's what I did here. So I put in 3 paragraphs, a lot more than I probably typically put in for my story. Oh, maybe I put in more than 3. All right, but there's a bunch of stuff in here. Okay. And what I want to show you quickly before I go on is if I go and grab this one. So this is, oh, it's the reason that it didn't work when I did that is I am not inside of, I am not inside of Visual Studio Code here. I am inside of Notepad++, which doesn't have that feature built in. All right, so I've got this, and there's my story. So again, what should happen when we do this is this. All right, that looks a little funky, but the rest of it looks like it works. And when you look right here, you'll notice this is one column, okay, all the way down like this. But once I flatten it out, it's 3 columns. All right. So that was the next part. And I'll tell you what, I'm very unhappy with myself and the fact that these aren't centered, and that when I shrink, that's the way that these should be looking. So what I'm going to do is, it is 11 o'clock. I'm going to give you a break until 11:15. And all I want to do during the break is see if I can figure out how to get that Slick Nav menu up. All right. And I'll just tell you that if I find it, and that'll be it for class today. So let's take a break until 11:15. We'll pick this up tomorrow. I will do versions 4, 5, and 6 of my copy of the pretest, over a couple of more examples, and then I'm working on yet another Flexbox example, and we'll go over that as well. All right, so let's take a break till 11:15, please. All right, it is 11:15. I went through my index.html and I went through the main underscore rwd.css and I didn't find anything that I thought was wrong. I changed a few things, but it was colors, etc. Or I took something that was pixels and put it into ems. I didn't see anything that looked wrong in here. What I am going to do, I don't like doing this, but what I am going to do is I'm going to take the two things that I used as a key, basically, and I am going to put them out there as a GitHub repo. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a private repo and I'm going to send an invite to each and every one of you that's in the class. So basically, you'll just have to bring that down. But I want to give you working copies so that you've got something to go off of when you're doing your actual homework. All right. Now, tomorrow, I'm hoping at least tomorrow, because it's 11:15 now. I'm hoping tomorrow because I want you to have this in by tomorrow. All right, so I'm hoping that that by tomorrow we'll finish up closer to 10 or 10:30. And again, the reason for that is that I want you to have some time to actually work on these assignments that are be due, at midnight tomorrow night. All right, that's all that I had. Like I said, I will take what I used for a key, which has got it actually has where the Slick Nav works, and I will put that out there in a few minutes, but it'll be put out there as a GitHub. I don't know what I'll call it yet, but you will all get an email to that present or to that GitHub repo. Okay. So Grant, unless you have any other questions, that's all I had for today.
I think I'm good for the moment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Yeah.